Hi class, it's Miss Miller. Thank you for joining me in our Critical Theories in Literature from an excerpt from Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. And today what I'd like to do is talk to you about a way in which we could approach this piece of a text. Now keep in mind when you think of critical theories, which by the way is one of my favorite things to study, it's just a different lens in which you examine a piece of work. So you could look at something from a feminist point of view, a Marxist point of view, but today we're going to look at it from what's called a psychoanalytical point of view, and we're going to examine Flowers for Algernon. I think that's the most appropriate theory to use to help us really understand the text at a deeper level. So the good news is that we've done much of the work already in class when you guys created the fever charts for Charlie and you sort of followed or chronicled his behavior from the beginning of the text to the end of the text. And on the y-axis, you came up with some variables, and one would be at the very bottom, which is going to be our part of emphasis today, is his basic desire or his urges that he has in the text. And so we're going to change the language, and instead of using that, we're going to use something that's more appropriate for the psychoanalysis that takes place in this type of approach. So this is the type of reading you're going to get in which we examine Charlie's outside behavior with his inner desires. Now, I want you to just think about that for a moment because the two seem to be almost polar opposites. They're different. So we see very early on, Charlie sort of establishes that he wants more than anything to be really smart at any cost, right? And that's what he desires on the inside. However, we also see this person who is a really compassionate person, and perhaps he may value his relationships, his friendships, the people in his life almost equally important on the outside. So his friends at work, you know, right? We say so-called friends at work, even the smells, Algernon, who he's simply taken a liking to. So there appears to be some sort of conflict that exists in that between your outside behavior and what you really want. Okay, so this idea of the basic urge, we're going to replace it with what's called the id. It's a pleasure principle, and it's your basic instincts. This is what you had on the very bottom of your fever chart for Charlie. So instead now we're going to replace the word urges and basic, and we're going to say the id. Now there's three parts, and so I've decided to separate this lecture series into three, and we're going to focus on id, but then there's the superego and there's also the ego. And we're going to focus on just this one. But this is almost like a child, an infant is in an infant state, right? And you want what you want right then and there. You don't want to wait for it, and you want it now, and you'll do whatever it takes to get it. So basic urges, whatever the needs are, the wants, it's your instinct. You want immediate gratification, right? Just imagine a little baby just screaming at the top of their lungs. They don't care that there's people around. They don't care about anything other than themselves, and they're focused on, I am not happy. Make me happy right now, right? Or if a little child has to use the bathroom, he's not going to go to the bathroom, right? If he's a young or a baby in diapers, he's just going to use it right there in his diaper. So there's almost like no filter, right? No conscience, no social skills for this child. Things to look for or questions to sort of think about, and you've already created these examples, but maybe a confirmation, like you're questioning yourself, did I select the right example from the text to sort of indicate that this is a desire of Charlie's? What areas of the text sort of talks about his subconscious? And we're going to define what it is. I think the text does a really nice job of defining subconscious. And what are his basic desires? What examples does the text present? And then my favorite and probably the strongest question to think about is, what does Charlie show, when does he show complete lack of conscious or social skills? And he truly does exhibit some, his social skills are lacking. And so all of these ideas and components really sort of fulfill the requirement or criteria for what's called the id, this pleasure principle. So you probably are thinking, oh gosh, you know, you might be rethinking, I could have put something else under this basic desire. There's a lot. So I do have some examples, at least for the first few pages of the text, to sort of support this reasoning. So the essential question that I want you to be thinking about, at least this week, is what role does the conflict between Charlie's subconscious and his conscious play in his pursuit of knowledge? And we had a brief discussion about the subconscious and the conscious today, right? And there's one that we are aware of, and then there's one that we're not aware of, right? Below the surface. So the text, like I said, does a really nice job on the subconscious and the conscious. And there's one, the two do not necessarily communicate, right? And once there's some things that we are conscious of as human beings, that we are aware of, we know. And then there's a subconscious that we don't even know ourselves, and sometimes they may go unchecked until we have dreams, or like Charlie may blurt something out, I want to be smart. So let's take a look first at the dreams and the undiscovered dreams. These are again the id. It falls under the id requirement. We have some examples from the text. I got up the nerve today to ask Miss Kenyon to have dinner with me tomorrow night, celebrate my bonus, right? So that's one. And we know it took him a while to recognize that he had these sentiments for this woman. And maybe when he was not as bright in the text, like in the very beginning, he wasn't even aware that he felt this way. April 28th, I don't understand why I never noticed how beautiful Miss Kenyon really is. So as he develops in terms of his intelligence, he also becomes aware of his subconscious, things that was below the surface, that was sort of kept in check, right? She has brown eyes and feathery brown hair that comes to the top of her neck. She's only 34. I think from the beginning I had the feeling that she was an unreachable genius and very, very old. Now every time I see her, she grows younger and more lovely. We had dinner and a long talk, and when she said that I was coming along so fast that soon I was leaving her behind, I laughed, right? So these are Charlie's dreams. Excuse me, the light's off, so I'm going to go put it back on. Okay, so I'm back. So these are Charlie's dreams, right, that he has. And like we said, they're undiscovered dreams. So this falls into the id category. And then we talked about the Oedipal connotation. And so this is obviously not Charlie's mother, but this is an affection that he has for this woman in the text. And she has a more dominant presence. And so he does have feelings or sentiments towards her. Now, when the character or people, they don't get to fulfill their immediate gratification, it builds tension, and they sort of have to become fixated, and they almost create this mental image to sort of satisfy the fact that they're not getting exactly what they want. So throughout the text, we sort of see this building up, right? I want to be smart. I said, please let me try again. So we see that he's very persistent. He really, really wants to be smart. And so she told me the test, and the other one, the Rorschach, was getting the personality. I laughed so hard. I said, how can you get the thing from the ink blots and photos? And she got sore and put her pictures away. I don't care. It was silly. I guess I failed the test too. So these are examples of Charlie sort of in his id state. He's laughing uncontrollably. Let's take a look at the next one. Then Dr. Newmar nodded. He said, all right, maybe you're right. We will use Charlie. When he said that, I got so excited, I jumped and shook his hand. So there it is, this level of excitement, right? Oh my gosh, you're choosing me. I jumped up and I shook his hand. So these are very subtle, and it requires a close read, because you could pass this up. The fact that he's excited, he jumped up, that's almost like he's in his id state. All my life I wanted to be smart and not dumb, but it's very hard to be smart. They said, it'll probably be temporary. I said, yes, Miss Kenyon told me, and I don't care if it hurts. Right? I don't care if it hurts. I want it. And so these are all examples of him sort of in his id state. Some more examples throughout the text. He expressed when he was hungry, I hate that mouse, he's always beats me, right? Those are like his basic instincts. There's no filter, right? I wish I knew some fancy things already. My favorite, and I put it in bold, and I think my picture might be blocking some of it, it's further down, but the second time I lost because I got so excited I fell off the chair before I finished. So excitement, hunger, all sorts of things sort of express his id state in the text. So all of this helps us sort of develop our thematic statement. We sort of study Charlie in his id state, and we'll look at him in his superego and his ego in the next series. But according to DQs, when it comes to perhaps you pick a subject, and we've talked about this, and you select mankind, people in general oftentimes struggle with, obviously it's going to be the self in this case, and some of you may say self and society because of his struggles that he has with his peers. Therefore, human beings have a propensity to do what, right? So this is where you come up with your theme after you look at the id. We'd have to cover all three of these to really give us a deeper sense of the theme. Okay, so I hope that covers it. I hope that you're able to understand the conflict that exists between Charlie, the subconscious, and the conscious, and then we're going to talk about the other parts of the human personality in our next video lecture.